This is the Bionicle Inspiration series. Today we're going to look at some Bionicles, some robots. Robots in disguise, you might say. Well, the designs that we're going to look at today are pretty awesome. I think there's some really interesting and kind of simple designs that would be pretty easy for you to replicate yourself in your own mocks. Some pretty awesome stuff today. You might say that some of these mocks have a little more than meets the eye. You could say something like that, you might not. But either way, we're going to be looking at some Transformer, or Bioformers, as they're called. So we're not looking at your typical Transformer characters. Bumblebee, Optimus Prime, and Starscream will not be here today, but we're going to look at the concept of transforming robots. So let's take a look at the first mock today, which is by Dukit, and this is called Morak the Wolf. So I know one thing for me when I want to build a Transformer, or just the concept of Transformers in general. You're like, man, the engineers and the creative people that are behind designing these Transformer toys must be geniuses. How do they do this? How do they get a car that turns into a robot? This must take years of planning. At least that's what I thought. But, you know, when you take a look at some Transformer designs, some of them are pretty complex. I'm talking about the actual toys here. Or when we take a look at some of these Lego Transformers here, you can see that you can actually achieve some really, really simplistic transformations and it still look awesome in both your vehicle or beast or any other kind of vehicle mode and your robot mode. And then, you know, you don't have to kind of be a dude with a degree in engineering to figure it out. So let's take a look at this mock here because I think this is a really good example of that. So, of course, here it is in its wolf form and then its robot form. And if you kind of study the pictures a little bit here, you can see that the transformation itself isn't necessarily that complex. Basically, you got to sort of do a little bit of funky stuff with the head there. The head seems to kind of move down onto the chest there. And you kind of, so you basically kind of flipping the head and then you sort of just rotate the limbs and stand them up. And you've basically done the transformation. It's pretty simple and pretty easy. You take a look at some of the really, really kind of easy to transform actual Transformer toys, and they are more or less that. It's a car that you literally just sort of flip up, and then it's done in like 1 or 2 moves. And it's still a transformation. It's still fun, and it's still cool. And if that's something you really want to get on a specific mock, there's some really, really simple ways of doing it, like we see here. But again, I say it all the time. Simple is super effective and super, super sweet. So nothing wrong with taking the simple approach. No use reinventing the wheel. Do what's easiest. So I really like the basic transformation on this, and really awesome looking robot form, and really awesome looking wolf. You know, if you would have just shown me this wolf and tell me it doesn't transform, honestly, I would have thought it was just a pretty cool wolf. And then you're like, oh, by the way, it transforms. Like, oh, sweet, that's awesome. And I always think those are the coolest transformations, is when you look at one form and you have absolutely no idea it's going to transform, and then you're like, wait a minute, check this out, and then and it transforms, and you're like, oh my god, that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. So awesome to see something like that on a cool mock like this. Speaking of some cool stuff, really like the head design here. Really nice part use there, using this funky old Technic piece. I want to say that's from Robo Riders or Slicers. I actually don't know. Should have checked before the episode. But there you go. There you go, Lego nerds. It's time for you to stretch those or flex those muscles there and say, Ben, I know exactly what that is. And let me know. But really, really nice part use there. It forms the general shape of a sort of wolf head like that very nicely. And then adding these 2 pieces here, sort of like the little ears on the back there. Looks really effective. Really, really cool. And I also love, too, the use of all these Chima sort of fur pieces here. You got a bunch of them on those CCBS Chima figures that we got way back when. And they work really well of conveying that sort of fur wolf texture. It's very nice. So an awesome transformation and an awesome mock on this mock here. Let us check out the next mock, which is sort of a series of mocks by a man named Dr. Scorpion X. So remember the last Bioformers episode I did? Everyone was like, but Ben, why didn't you mention Dr. Scorpion X? And I was like, well, I don't want to, because he doesn't really have pictures online. And I was like, I don't want to just, download his videos and then, put them on mine. I'm like, I'll just be stealing his content. But here's a plug for Dr. Scorpion X. If you want to see some top quality stop motion, as well as top quality transforming Bionicles, he's your man. Go to him. He does it far better than so many people. He is the king of this sort of stuff. So by all means, check this guy out, because Dr. Scorpion X is amazing. There'll be a link to his stuff in the description, of course. But as I was strolling through finding some mocks for this episode, I stumbled across this guy on Flickr. His name was Primus Tahu. And I was like, aha! this guy made some cool mocks. And then in the description, it's just like, I just took pictures of Dr. Scorpion X's stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, well. So here's some pictures of Dr. Scorpion X's stuff. Because I didn't really feel comfortable just taking his stuff off of YouTube. But here you go. So he's done some awesome stuff. He's basically revamped all 6 of the G2 Toa and given them transformations. And so the robot modes of all of these Transformers are basically just really cool looking revamps of all of the G2 characters here. They look really cool. They're very simply made, but they're executed really nicely. And, you know, if you have a more limited collection or, you know, you're a little more new to mocking, that sort of thing, achieving these sorts of really awesome, effective, really cool looking revamps like this for these G2 characters here is something that you could easily do yourself. And it would be a fun activity because, you know, they don't use too many pieces, but they get, you know, you get some really interesting and new out there looking designs. So it's something fun to try it for yourself. And then on top of that, they also transform. So that's pretty cool. So it's something that you could easily replicate yourself and a fun activity that you could try. So I definitely recommend doing that. Sounds like a fun way to spend your day. And also that's a really fun thing that you could do, whether you're trying to specifically replicate these actual designs, or if you're just like, hey, I'm just going to use a bunch of my G2 parts, make a cool character, and then sort of finagle the limbs and the body and things like that to see if I can create a transformation like these awesome mocks that we're seeing. Because you see him do it here with all 6 of the G2 characters, so you know it's possible, and he's pretty much just using the CCBS pieces. Pretty much exclusively is the CCBS pieces that come with purely the G2 sets. So it's easy to do and fun to do too. So definitely give that a go and see what you can do, because as you see here, awesome stuff. And you got Coulter too. There you go. So yeah, be sure to check out Dr. Scorpion X, or be sure to try out making some cool CCBS heavy Transformer mocks, because both are pretty awesome. Now let's move on to the next mock, which is Obsidian Mech by Chris Mayo. So I thought this mock was really cool because it's got a lot of really unique things on it here. One, it's just a really cool looking mech, but it's actually an exosuit that fits this little sort of Toa design here into it. And exosuit kind of mecha things are awesome on their own, but then you tell me, oh, by the way, Ben, it actually transforms into a car too. That's pretty cool. Really like that. Especially too because this car here actually kind of resembles some of the sort of Technic cars that you might see in Lego sets. And when I was looking at this, it kind of got me thinking like, man, could you just buy one of the cooler Technic cars, like the orange Porsche or something like that, and using those pieces and maybe introducing a few other things, actually just make that car transform into a robot too? And I was like, wow, that's a great idea. And I thought that's what he'd done, but he hasn't quite done that. But, you know, of course, he's bought that orange car set there, the Technic one, and used a lot of those pieces to actually make this set here. So nothing wrong with doing that yourself. Or, if you accept my challenge, that sounds like a fun day too. So give both of them a go if you're keen. But I really like what this mock does, you know, making this sort of really large-scale Titan and having it transform, and also being an exosuit. Really unique. I've not seen something like that before. Really like it. So the rider herself is pretty awesome. She's got a really cool looking gun there. And then when the rider goes into the suit, we see it's actually also pretty posable too, which is really quite impressive. And so, you know, it's the fact that it's so posable and is a Titan is also really impressive. We see that he can achieve a lot of that there with the use of a bunch of pistons and things like that, as well as some ratchet joints and things. Stuff to just kind of make all the joints sort of sturdier and be able to sort of hold up their own weight and stuff like that. Introducing things like that is the perfect way to do so. And also just using a lot of larger kind of panel things, you know, Technic panels or larger kind of pieces there, just to cover up more space but not have things be too heavy. That's a really smart way of doing it. But yeah, I think this is just a really unique and awesome way of kind of executing a mock, of just sort of really dedicating yourself, buying a larger set, using a bunch of the larger pieces that you've got and just a bunch of pieces that you have on your own, and kind of just pouring a bunch of man hours into it and just seeing like, okay, you know, I'm going to dedicate my time and build a really big Titan mock, and that it can transform into this really cool car and stuff. And so if you really want to kind of stretch yourself or, you know, take on a larger kind of project, this is something to kind of work on, you know. I always recommend, you know, building something smaller because, you know, if you don't have too much time, that's definitely one of the one thing that's a little bit more manageable and easy to do. And if you're new to it, you know, maybe don't start too big. Start off small, start off simple. But if you enjoy building, you've done a fair bit of it, and you want to sort of pour a bunch of time into a really large project that you can, you know, after a month or two, look at when it's finished and be like, man, I poured hours into this thing. It's done. I'm so proud of it. I've done that sort of stuff before. It's so much fun doing that with a large scale project. So hey, it's something to think about and something that's really fun to do. So if you haven't done something like that yet, I recommend doing it. This is a really good example of that, especially too, kind of figuring out all the intricacies of that transformation and stuff. It's a really fun, good idea. Super cool. So really nice work, dude. Let's move on to the next mock, which is by Kelvin Lowe, otherwise known as Chubby Bots. And this is his mock called General. It's a super cool mech here. Really, really like how it looks. Got this funky, cool feet design here with these nice little posable toes. Really cool. Really nice color blocking here too, sort of focusing the gold in sort of very distinct areas there, as well as introducing the trans orange bits in there too. All the colors are very laid out in a very nice way. It's very nice to see. And I really like the shoulder design here, using those sort of chest pieces there to form this sort of curvature on the shoulders there. It looks really, really nice. But transforms, just in case you forgot what this episode was about. This guy transforms and he turns into this sort of cool Zoid looking thing. Very, very nice. And something that I really like about it, we read the little description here. This is his speed form, which is super cool. I like that. And when we take a look at the mock itself, there's a lot of sort of more sleek parts being used here. The sort of textures and curves used on pretty much all of the CCBS armor pieces here, used throughout the body and the shoulders and the arms and stuff like that. They have that sort of sleeker, sort of streamlined texture. But, specifically looking at the head design here, using that Uniter Beast head thingamajig there, it also has that kind of curved look to it, very streamlined. And then the blades there kind of used on the neck, same sort of deal there. So I think that's a really interesting thing to look at, is focusing very specifically on textures and the kind of curves of individual pieces and seeing if that can kind of lend itself to the power that your mock has, or just a sort of trait of the mock, something like that. I think that's a really, really clever use of parts there to kind of integrate it into the story or aspects of the character itself. It's really, really cool. So really nice work there, Kelvin. Let's move on to the next mock, which is by Marco and is called HF Table Scrap. So here's a little fun fact for you. If you don't know what the term table scrap means, it's basically just, you're just sitting at your desk, there's a bunch of pieces on the table, and you just sort of put something together. You weren't necessarily sitting down to actually mock out something. You weren't really working on any kind of project. You were really just messing around with pieces, and you ended up with a cool result, and you thought, I'll post it. That's a table scrap. So here's a Hero Factory table scrap. So this one's really simple, really effective, really cute too, and it transforms into a cool looking sort of crawler beast guy here. Really simple transformation as well. We're talking about how, you don't have to overcomplicate the transformations here. Really simple design here. You basically just flip it, you sort of put the legs together, move a few things around there, and you've got the really awesome looking transformation there. Really simple, really cute, really cool. Also, it's got a mono eye. Mono eyes are great. And again, very CCBS heavy, a very simplistic design, but a really awesome execution and outcome that transforms. Super cool. So yeah, really like it, really cool. And I'll leave you with a little bit of advice here before we finish with this mock. The last Bioformers episode, if you haven't watched it, feel free to, because if you enjoyed this one, I've got another one there. The audio quality is terrible because I was transitioning between mics, but you'll get used to it like after a minute of watching, so don't worry. But besides the point, one mock I featured on that episode, someone was saying that they built a Hero Factory mock, and they were like, this is pretty cool, but I wonder if I could do something else with it. And then he went, I'll make it a transformer. And he went, I wonder if it already is a transformer. And he just sort of moved the limbs around, and suddenly he's like, oh wow, it actually transforms already. That's super cool. And then in the little description, when he posted the mock, he said, hey, all your mocks that you've built, I challenge you, play with the limbs, play with the pieces, move them around a bit, and see if it already is a transformer in disguise. And I was like, wow, that's a cool thought. The idea that you could build a mock and not even realize it can transform, because have you tried to transform it? Do you know if it can transform? Give it a go. Maybe you've already built a mock that already is a transformer. Move the limbs around, move the legs around, try and turn it into a plane. See if it does. It might just work. Maybe you might have to make a few tweaks to make it work a little bit better, but you might have the basis of a mock already done for you. Give it a go, see what you can do. So there you go. That has been a few robots in disguise, a few transformers in this Bionicle Inspiration Series episode today. I hope you enjoyed this one. I enjoyed making it. We will, of course, be doing more Bionicle Inspiration Series episodes in the future, and if you want your mocks on the show, you can't have them on the show. Of course you can have them on the show. I was joking. Of course you can. The way to do so is through the email that you're currently seeing on the screen. You send your mocks, you send me some pictures to this email that you're currently seeing. It'll eventually get on the show. I got a long list of submissions to work through, but don't let that discourage you. You send it through because I randomly pick out of that hat, man. I randomly pick out mocks and put them in episodes. One day it'll be on. I promise you. One day. Just need a little patience, and it'll be on there. And if you're like, Ben, I've already forgot what the email was, it's in the description, so you can copy and paste it there if you want to send it over. Also, while you're there in the description, there'll be links to everybody's social media for all the mocks that I covered today, including my social media, and Dr. Scorpion X's social media. Check that guy out. He's cool. That's it for this Bioformers Transformers themed episode. I think it's time, Autobots. Let's roll out. See you in the next episode, guys. Bye for now.